Welcome to the deep dive. So you've probably seen the headlines about Japan's recent Tokyo Metropolitan Assembly election. That wrapped up last Sunday, June 29th.
Right.
And the big story was the ruling Liberal Democratic Party, the LDP, taking quite a hit. Now, normally, historically, that kind of setback for the LDP, well, it's often been a red flag, hasn't it, for the markets?
Yeah, usually signals potential downturns, maybe some uncertainty.
Exactly. But here's the really fascinating thing, the paradox. Japanese stocks have actually been soaring since these results came out.
Which is counterintuitive. And that's really the core of our deep dive today. While the news might focus on just the LDP's losses, our mission here is to go, well, much deeper.
Right.
We want to try and uncover what this unexpected market reaction truly signifies for Japan's broader political structure, its economic future, and crucially, what it might mean for you.
Yeah.
Whether you're, actively tracking global markets or maybe just trying to stay well informed.
And we should say, we're not just sort of throwing ideas around here. Our insights are drawn from a pretty detailed recent analysis.
That's right.
One that connects these election outcomes to historical trends and the very unique dynamics of the Japanese stock market. So yeah, let's unpack this unusual story.
Okay.
So just to set the scene properly, the event itself, Tokyo Metropolitan Assembly election. It happened on June 22nd, but the results really crystallized around June 29th, 2025. What was the key takeaway?
Well, the most striking outcome, as you said, was a pretty considerable drop in seats for the LDP. The reports say around 10 seats lost.
Okay, 10 seats. That's significant for Tokyo.
It is. And on the flip side, several opposition parties made notable advancements. You've got the Constitutional Democratic Party, the CDP, the New Senseido Party, Tamen First Nokai, that's the Tokyo 8's first council, Governor Koike Yurikinen Group.
Right, Koike's party.
They all saw significant gains. And Nippon Ishin no Kai and the Democratic Party for the People also picked up some seats.
So a real shift in the assembly's makeup.
Definitely. So the initial media narrative, quite naturally, was very much focused on this LDP setback.
Makes sense. And, if you follow Japanese politics even a little, the Tokyo election isn't just about Tokyo. It's often seen as this potent barometer for national politics. Can you elaborate on that historical pattern for us?
Absolutely. It's quite a consistent thing, actually. The results of the Tokyo Metro Assembly election have historically served as a kind of precursor. They often influence the subsequent national elections.
Whether it's the upper house or the lower house.
Exactly. Either one. This pattern has played out time and time again.
Can you maybe walk us through a couple of specific examples where the Tokyo election really did act as that kind of bellwether for what happened nationally? What did that look like?
Sure. Take 2001. The LDP won the Tokyo election then. And the upper house election that followed saw very little change. The Koizumi administration just continued to gain strength nationally.
Okay, so LDP win in Tokyo, LDP strength nationally.
Right. And similarly, look at 2013. This was during the Abe administration. The LDP, again, secured a really significant victory in Tokyo.
Right.
And that sort of paved the way for the LDP to become the dominant party on the national scene again, setting the stage for Abenomics and, that big recovery in the stock market.
Abenomics, yeah.
So in both those cases, 2001, 2013, a strong LDP showing in Tokyo really did coincide with national LDP strength.
So in those times, Tokyo was a clear predictor of LDP dominance nationally. But what about the flip side? When the LDP didn't do well in Tokyo, did that also foreshadow national trends?
That's a really crucial part of the pattern. Contrast those years with, say, 2009.
Okay, 2009.
The Democratic Party of Japan, the DPJ, they won the Tokyo election that year.
Right, I remember that.
And that win was followed by a landslide victory for the DPJ in the lower house election nationally. That led to the LDP's defeat, the formation of the Haruyama administration.
The markets didn't like that much, did they?
No, not at all. In fact, many investors at the time characterized that period as the beginning of a kind of dark age for the market. Just too much political uncertainty and big shifts happening.
Okay, so given this really powerful historical barometer, a setback for the LDP in Tokyo this time should, by all accounts, signal trouble ahead for them nationally. And we do have the upper house election coming up very soon, voting July 28th, results announced around July 3rd.
Right.
So does our analysis predict a similar fate for the LDP this time around? A big national loss?
Well, based purely on that historical pattern, the analysis does suggest the LDP will likely see, a reduction in seats in the upcoming upper house election. That seems probable.
Okay.
However, and this is a really critical distinction, that it does not necessarily predict a full change in the ruling party itself, not like what we saw in 2009.
Oh, okay. So maybe losing seats, but not necessarily losing power altogether.
That seems to be the suggestion.
But this brings us right back to the really fascinating puzzle we started with. If the historical patterns suggest an LDP setback could trigger market downturns like that dark age in 2009 you mentioned, why on earth have we seen Japan's stock market perform so remarkably well, especially in the week right after the June 22nd Tokyo election? This is where the deeper story starts, isn't it?
Precisely. This surprising market performance, it really suggests that the stock market isn't just reacting to a potential simple shift in power numbers. Instead, it appears to be already factoring in something deeper, a sort of structural change within Japan's political and economic landscape. It feels like the market is looking beyond the immediate headlines.
Okay, structural change. That sounds significant. What exactly is different about Japan's political structure now compared to, let's say, 2009? Why would that lead to such a different market reaction this time?
Well, back in 2009, the political landscape was pretty much a direct clash between two giants, right? The LDP and the DPJ. It felt very binary.
Yeah, one or the other.
Today's reality is quite different. I mean, yes, the LDP is still a large party, and the CDP, the main opposition, is significant. But there's also been this really notable rise of multiple smaller parties.
Okay. Like who?
We're talking about parties like Nippon Ishinnokai, Sanseido, the Democratic Party for the People. They're all gaining traction, getting a more substantial voice in the diet.
So it's not just a two-horse race anymore. It's this, what does the analysis call it? Like a two major parties plus multi-party system.
Exactly that phrase. A unique two major parties plus multi-party system. And what's really insightful, I think, are the new dynamics among the opposition parties themselves.
How so? What are they doing differently?
Well, key opposition figures, like the CDP's Noda, who, remember, is a former prime minister himself, they don't appear to be actively gunning for the PM's job right now, or pushing hard for, like, a no-confidence vote at this moment.
That is interesting. So if the main opposition isn't trying to topple the government outright, what is their goal? How are they using their increased influence if not to take power?
Yeah. The prevailing thought, according to our source material, is that these opposition parties, both the CDP and the smaller ones, are using their increased influence, their extra seats, more like bargaining chips.
Bargaining chips.
Yeah. They want to push for policies they believe in, policies they think are beneficial, and they're essentially trying to compel the ruling LDP to genuinely listen and adopt some of their ideas.
So it's less about overthrowing the government and more about influencing it.
Yeah.
Shaping policy from within the existing structure.
That seems to be the strategy. Leveraging influence, shaping policy, rather than just aiming for a complete seizure of power like the DPJ did in 2009.
That is a fundamentally different approach. And our source, they have a specific term for this new dynamic, don't they? This idea of balancing stability and change.
They do. It's quite a memorable phrase. This new political dynamic has been termed Gaian Naihen. It's a four-character Japanese idiom, narahena.
Gaian Naihen. Okay.
And it roughly translates to something like external stability, internal change, or maybe internal innovation. It's a really interesting lens to view what might be happening.
Let's break that down because it feels really key to understanding the market's positive reaction. What does the Gaian part external stability mean in this Japanese context?
So for overseas investors, particularly, the LDP remaining as the ruling party, even if weakened, provides a crucial sense of stability, continuity, especially in Japan's international diplomatic face.
The face Japan presents to the world.
Exactly. Historically, Japan's leadership, from the emperor right down to the prime minister, has maintained a remarkably consistent external presence. A big, rapid change in leadership, like we saw in 2009, can create a lot of uncertainty for foreign markets, make them quite hesitant.
Right.
So the perspective from abroad, the source suggests, is often that Japan's face should ideally remain pretty stable.
Okay, that makes sense. External stability. Then there's the other part, Naihen, internal change or innovation. How does that part work and why is it seen as positive?
This is where the dynamism comes in, but in a controlled way. Crucially, within this stable external framework, the ruling LDP, because it's lost seats and needs cooperation, can no longer just make unilateral decisions like it perhaps could when it was overwhelmingly dominant.
They have to listen more now.
They're compelled to genuinely listen, to engage with the opposition's opinions, maybe incorporate some of their perspectives. This internal pressure, the idea goes, leads to more thorough policy discussions.
Mhm.
And that creates the potential for new, perhaps more innovative policies to actually be implemented rather than just being blocked or ignored by a single all-powerful party.
Yeah.
It forces a kind of internal dynamism and debate.
So it's like stability provides the container, but the internal pressure creates positive change within it.
That's a good way to put it. Controlled internal dynamism.
And I understand the source material even draws a historical parallel for this, which I found fascinating.
Yes, a very insightful one going way back in Japanese history. This Gaian Naihen concept finds a really powerful parallel in the Meiji
Well,
Restoration.
okay. How so?
Well, think about it. The Tokugawa shogunate, the ruling power, collapsed. That was massive internal upheaval. But the external symbol of leadership, the emperor, remained stable, providing continuity.
Right. Emperor stayed.
Yet internally, you had these powerful forces like the Satsuma and Toshu domains driving radical changes, innovations that completely reshaped Japan. It was, in a way, Gaian Naihen back then, too. External stability, internal transformation.
Wow, that's a really compelling analogy. So this overall structure, Gaian Naihen, stable on the outside, but dynamic and innovative internally. That's what's potentially generating this investor optimism we're seeing.
Precisely. That's the hypothesis from the analysis. It's seen as highly positive for the stock market because it potentially fosters both stability and economic growth at the same time. Policies might end up being more robust, more carefully considered because they have to survive this internal debate.
And we talked about the market reaction. The timing really does seem to back this up, doesn't it?
It really does. The strong performance of Japanese stocks, specifically in that week following the June 22nd election results becoming clear, provides pretty compelling circumstantial evidence for this Gaianai hen theory taking hold among investors. It doesn't feel like just a coincidence.
Right. And it wasn't just Japan in isolation either, was it? The source pointed to a global factor potentially playing a role around the same time.
That's right. There's a suggestion that this positive market reaction in Japan also coincided with a perhaps broader global sense of Gaian external stability.
Okay. How?
Well, the analysis points to some recent actions by former U.S. President Trump that, in the view of the source, acted as a kind of bunker buster, their term, that significantly realigned or maybe quieted down parts of the global geopolitical landscape, at least temporarily.
Interesting interpretation.
So the idea is you combine that potential global external stability, that Gaian, with Japan's own emerging Naihen, its internal change and innovation signaled by the Tokyo election results.
Okay.
And this simultaneous occurrence, perhaps, created the ideal environment for market optimism in Japan, driving that strong stock performance, a confluence of factors.
So putting it all together then, what we've seen in the Tokyo election, it isn't just a simple shift in political seats or a localized upset for the LDP.
It seems not.
It's potentially signaling the emergence of a new, maybe more robust Japanese political structure, this Gaian Naihen.
External stability paired with internal dynamism and innovation. That's the concept.
Which leaves us, and you the listener, with a pretty important question to consider, doesn't it?
I think so. Is this unique Japanese model balancing this stable external leadership with an internally innovative, maybe more contentious political system? Is this a potential blueprint for sustained growth and political evolution, something other nations might look at?
Or is it just a uniquely Japanese phenomenon, something deeply tied to its specific history, its culture, that wouldn't necessarily translate elsewhere?
Exactly. Is it replicable or is it purely Japanese?
Something to definitely ponder as you watch the global stage unfold, and maybe look for signals beneath the headlines next time. Thanks for diving deep with us today.